Shares of GE are down yet again today. It's been a very rough week for this stock, crossing below 17 yesterday and now flirting with at $16 level, you see right there. CEO John Flannery earlier this week said all options are on the table and there are, quote, no sacred cows when it comes to restructuring the company. Earlier this week, we had one analyst join us saying there is no, quote, downside limit to where the stock can go. For more, let's bring in former General Electric Vice Chairman, my boss some time back, Bob Wright. He's also a senior advisor at Lee Equity Partners and the, of course, founder of the Suzanne Wright Foundation. Bob, always good to see you, but another bad morning for GE. I know you still own shares. I mean, just from a personal perspective here, are you sorry you haven't sold? What are you thinking when you watch this stock and the week that it's had?
Well, I keep thinking that I know a lot about those businesses that are existing, and they're some of the strongest businesses that any company could be associated with, in power, in healthcare, and aviation, and even in GE Capital. They have the finest leasing, corporate leasing business, jets, and you know, this whole thing has been very difficult. When you see legacy things coming on here, like insurances, policies that were maybe sold 30 years ago and have been looked at by people for constantly over the years, and it got to the point where I guess Flannery just said he's going to take the hit on this because he can't make it work. And we need more data and more information from him. He's a very talented guy. But it's taking away from the scale of the businesses that are there, which are, you know, performing at or better than expectations, and especially the aircraft engine business. That's a business that you can't duplicate. You could not duplicate a business like that. Healthcare is extremely important. And so I think the problem with the market is when they saw that the dividend from GE Capital was going to be deferred and might not be available for many years, that probably became a secondary issue. I didn't see that coming at the time.
No, you know, I think, Bob, there is this concern, and you sort of referenced it, that there's more to come on these liabilities that haven't been properly assessed. You know, you were at GE Capital before you, of course, came to run NBC Universal. Is it your sense that's a possibility? You seem to indicate you'd like a little bit more transparency, but that does seem to be a fear, despite the fact that GE is telling us this is it. You know, we're good now on the capital front, on insurance, and on any other big surprises.
Well, insurance was really the only issue that I would have signaled that, you know, had they been following it. It's not like people didn't know about it. It's just that they probably, you know, the contracts could be 30 years old now, and the 7 or 8% estimate of income that was going to come from the investment just has not materialized, and so they had to take this bite. I'm not aware of anything else that's in GE Capital that's of concern in terms of legacy.
Yeah. Earlier this week, I was reporting...
GE doesn't have a lot of debt, but it has a lot of liabilities that are probably mostly with GE Capital.
Right, and of course, they dispatched most of the businesses at GE Capital, which I think is also something that some investors are, that's why they're perhaps even more disappointed. Bob, earlier this week, during the conference call about those insurance losses, Flannery touched on the possibility in a very frank way of breaking the company up, essentially. And what I've heard from people close to the company is it is a real possibility. It is being investigated, studied very closely, has been for weeks, will continue to be. When you think about a breakup of GE into the strong aviation business you just referenced, and healthcare, and the troubled power business, do you think it makes sense?
Well, first of all, the troubled power business is just a factor that they have an oversupply of power generation equipment. They are the world's leader in that category, though. And that's just kind of a timing thing. Now you've got oil back up and other issues, and that will help them too. But that business isn't damaged. It just probably got a little ahead of themselves. But the other two businesses are right on target, and they're very big business. I would imagine he's looking at taking.
Do you think it should be split up, Bob?
I think maybe he'll be looking to bring the public into those businesses individually, retaining a controlling interest. That would be my guess.
But is it your belief, Bob, that all the shoes have dropped? I mean, that's what it sort of sounded like, but I'm just curious. Are you confident, do you feel confident as a shareholder that there isn't one more thing that Flannery's going to talk about when they report earnings?
Well, I think, again, it's the scale of what he reported, because he led, you'd believe, back in November, that he was concerned about long-term care insurance, and he was going to do a thorough examination of that. So he put that on the table. It's the amount that came out, and it's the consequence of losing the dividend from GE Capital to GE. I think it's been the most difficult thing to deal with.
Yeah.
He's got to come out with a very good, there's no reason why you can't bring the public into any of those three big businesses, or even, for that matter, bring them into the aircraft leasing business. It's a big business.
Right. So you expect some sort of significant, let's call it restructuring, but not necessarily a wholesale breakup. Bob, as a longtime investor, as somebody obviously who worked for the company for a very long period of time in very senior management roles, what gets it moving from here? I mean, it has been a horrible period for GE, a lot of doubts that we've just been bringing up. Is it just blocking and tackling? What gets sort of things changed in terms of the narrative?
Well, I think he has to get the legacy behind him and then focus on the major parts that he wants to retain. He has a number of businesses he can still sell. I think people don't... If you look at the balance sheet of GE, you'll see an awful lot of liabilities that are put together. I think that has to be thoroughly, gotten. We have to get past that, and then we just focus on those larger businesses, and that larger business is not $11 a share stock by any means.
No. So,
any of those companies could sell for more, 120 or 150 million, $1 billion. So. It is about the liabilities.
Right, and to your point, it's about $140 billion market cap. Are you going to sell any of your shares? I mean, you're going to hang in there now for whatever's to come?
Well, I'm hanging in there. I've been hanging in there all along. It's been a one-way street, though. I certainly... I mean, yeah. I feel terrible for him. I feel terrible. I know those people. They're really good people, and they're struggling to get this to be more transparent and get the focus on those businesses which are much more understandable.
Well, Bob, we appreciate your joining us and giving us some insight and perhaps some positive sentiment, which has been sorely lacking.
If I could just take a moment to tell you,
of course.
This is my Code Purple hat. It's for the Suzanne Wright Foundation. I have been spending a great deal of my time on a program for pancreatic cancer, and I have developed a program that probably should have been implemented years ago and has not, and it's called HARPA, Advanced Research Projects Agency, which would sit inside of Health and Human Services and model from DARPA, which is in the Department of Defense, and they take on the most difficult challenges, and they're an independent, autonomous unit. They can use outside resources inside the government, and they've accomplished all kinds of things at the Department of Defense. Everything from the internet to night vision to robotics. And,
right.
It's an endless list. And I don't know why this hasn't been done in the last 20 years. I suggest it hasn't been done because it's been fought by the NIH and doesn't want anybody doing research inside that they don't take care of, but they don't do this kind of work. This is really problem-solving work, and I've got all kinds of people lined up. I'm in the White House with my program. I've gotten a very positive response, but it's just hard. I've got to move forward with it. So that's what I'm doing, and GE's got to help me out here a little bit, too.
Yeah, you need to fund it. Bob, thank you, and of course, we always appreciate your joining us. Bob Wright, former vice chairman of GE, and of course, man who ran